Welcome to Beyond Death, where we examine near-death experiences from people who say they have died, visited the other side, and came back. Before we begin, I want to take a second to say thank you to Doug B. and Devotee for supporting the channel via Super Thanks. Today's NDE comes from Rick R., who describes meeting the Son of God, Jesus Christ. Let's get into it. Why I Do Not Fear Death, by Rick R. This essay is an explanation of certain events in my life that have caused me not to worry, fret, have anxiety, or fear death in any way. During my younger days, this was not the case. I was very fearful. I do not expect anyone to believe me just because I have written this. You might think I'm as nutty as a fruitcake. I've thought the same thing at times. Know that I am not making this up, and I believe what I am saying. If this was a courtroom, just bring me the Bible. I'm ready to say, I do. It began when I was a child. My mother used to tell me that I had an imaginary friend. She said I described him as a tall man with a top hat. As I think back and ponder, could this have been my guardian angel? Who knows? But over time, this was lost to my memory, and I never gave it a second thought until now. I am totally convinced that there has been 2 times in my life when I was directly contacted by my guardian angel. I have never thought much about it until now. As I have reflected, I have thanked him many times for saving my life. Twice. The first time was when I was a stupid, foolish teenager. I had just dropped off a friend at his house, and it was very late, about 1 a.m. I was speeding down a residential street, doing about 60 in a 30-mile-per-hour zone. There was an intersection on this street that did not have stop signs for either direction. I foolishly decided to cross that intersection at full speed. I was almost into the intersection when there was a male voice screaming inside my head, "Stop!" I immediately slammed on the brakes and locked up the wheels. Just then, another car streaked across in front of me. I wound up with my car sideways in the street, almost in someone's front lawn. I sat there a minute composing myself, shaking and trying to wipe up the disgusting yellow liquid from my jeans. I very carefully engaged the clutch and drove home the rest of the way like any model citizen. Without his intervention, I would have been T-boned and dead as a doornail. The second time came when I was 40 years old. My wife had left me. I was in a deep, dark malaise, contemplating suicide, taking antidepressants, and just off the most horrible phone call fight with her of my life. As I hung up the phone, I totally lost it, bawling my eyes out and praying to God that I might have my life back. I can never, ever remember a prayer to him with more earnest fervor. After about 30 minutes of prayer, I said my Amen. Then once again, the male voice came inside my head. He said these words, "Okay, now get a hold of yourself and straighten up. Things will get better." To make a very long, drawn-out story short, my wife and I have now had our 35th wedding anniversary. This time was not so deadly a circumstance, but it was ever so important for me in this time of my life. Neither time did it even occur to me to question whose voice that it was in my head. I just accepted it and went on like this was completely normal. I didn't hear these words with my ears. It was in my mind somehow. In September of 1975, my dad was diagnosed with a cancer called oak cell carcinoma in his lung and lymph nodes. He had smoked since a teenager, a 3-packs-a-day smoker. My wife, my brother, and myself drove up to Dallas from College Station, Texas A&M, when we received a phone call from my mom that the time of his death was very near. We made it there in plenty of time. It was like he was waiting on us to get there so he could finally let go. He actually spoke to us and asked how our drive was coming home, while drifting in and out of consciousness. He passed within an hour of our arrival. That night, our relatives started arriving, and we had people lying everywhere throughout the house. My wife and I were in the study, sleeping on a futon. I was lying in the dark, trying to fall asleep, when I heard someone walking in the kitchen. I sat up to look and see who it was. There in the doorway was the dark silhouette of my father standing facing us. I rubbed my eyes trying to see more clearly. When I opened them again a second later, he was gone. I laid back down trying to decide if I was now nuts. I fell asleep and did not tell anyone about this until recently. For years, I thought I was dreaming or just plain crazy. After reading a study about after-death communication, I started talking about this with my brother and discovered that this very odd occurrence had happened to both of us the night our father died. When I told my brother my story, he said that he saw Dad that night too. He heard steps coming down the hall and saw his silhouette in his bedroom doorway. During my lifetime, I have undergone numerous medical procedures and operations. They include removal of my wisdom teeth under a general anesthetic, repair of the torn anterior cruciate ligament of my left knee, appendicitis, removal of my gallbladder, and removal of 15 inches of my colon due to diverticulitis. Sometime after my knee operation, I have begun having flashbacks of what I would describe as a near-death experience. At first, I thought it was just some normal dream, and I blew it off as such. Recently, the thought occurred to me that this was something other than a dream. I usually forget dreams. This one I can see vividly, just as if it actually happened. I would describe it like being on a vacation and thinking back, what it was like standing on a beach somewhere. You can remember each detail of the place you were at, which is very undreamlike. I can remember standing in a great hall. There were other people standing in a group to my side. I could not see their faces, but they were there with me and for me. They looked like shadow people or silhouettes to my eyes. I saw their shapes and felt like I knew them, but I couldn't tell you who they were. We were all waiting for someone. Then he came in. He walked up to me and introduced himself. "Hello, I'm the Son of God." I heard the words in my head. From that point on, I can't remember anything that was said. He looked to be about 5 feet 10 inches to 6 feet tall. He had brown shoulder-length hair and a close-trimmed beard. He had a dark, olive complexion. His eyes were blue and his nose was what I would describe as somewhat of a Roman nose. In other words, large and kind of bent just a little bit under the bridge. All in all, his face looked rather normal, and not what I would have thought it might have been had I been artist drawing his face. He wore a white robe with a gold sash around his waist. I remember that the ceiling of the room was like looking at the sky at night with very bright stars. The floor was a highly polished white marble with gray to black veins of minerals streaming through the stone, and there were some marble steps off to one side. The architecture would best be described as Greek, but in perfect condition, brand new and well tended. I don't know why or how I got there. I don't know how I got back. Can't remember anything else than what I describe here. This happened several years after my father's death. I can't place the exact date, but the flashbacks started after the knee operation. I have tried discussing this with my wife. She says that it was a dream, and I am describing some Jesus picture I have seen somewhere. In other words, she's not buying it and doesn't want to talk anymore about it. I also tried to discuss this with one of the elders of my church. This was immediately after a Bible class where the subject of life after death was discussed at length. I was told that I sounded like some kind of nut. Interesting was what I thought at the time. Here we have a person who professes to believe in a living God and in his Son, but will not even listen to something that might support what he believes in. My response to him was, "If you do not believe in life after death, then why are you here?" That ended my attempts to share my experiences with the members of my church. I don't want to be the nut who saw Jesus. Here are some other things I have noticed about my behavior after my NDE. I am now a vegetarian. I have stopped hunting and killing things I will not eat. I have become hyper-intuitive around people who try to lie to me, and I just know that they are lying. I try to help people every chance I have, and I feel terrible when I miss an opportunity because I was not thinking or just zoning out. I no longer judge people for the mistakes they make. They are just learning how to love others and haven't gotten there yet. I couldn't care less about the material things of this life. I could be completely happy without all this stuff. I love living every day like it's my last. It used to bother me when people die, but not now. What does bother me is when someone takes another's life or does evil to someone else. They have no right to take away what God has given. Jesus is alive and active today, even if you don't believe in him. I saw a movie one time that had a really great line in it to describe what I see happening. Some things are true whether you believe them or not. We have unseen help out there somewhere that watches over us and keeps us throughout our lives. There is life after death. I do not fear death in the least. Death is merely the birth into something else. If you believe that there is nothing after this life, you are in for a big surprise. Notes from Beyond Death. I have included a link to Rick's near-death experience in the description for those that would like to check it out or read the question and answer portion that follows it. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are on this one. Until next time, stay blessed.